This report is focusing on the genre aspects of the TV show Grimm and how it fits into the fantasy world, or if it creates its own path. Steve Neal, a British philosopher and theorist, has written several books about genre theories, most notable for writing the book On Genre, which was released in 1980. Genre refers to the type of text such as love poetry, horror films, social realism, crime thriller, science fiction, and many more. Neal argues that genres are defined by repetition, but also the inoculation of innovation and change to familiar forms. In any given genre, there will be certain codes and conventions which come up repeatedly. Films are commonly considered in terms of their genres. These features help to show the audience what type of media they are consuming and help to attract an audience who are interested in that genre. People recognize genres by their narratives or themes, but also by their iconography, characters, and certain stylistic elements. For example, in horror films, there are many features that will come up again and again. This might include a nighttime setting, darkly lit environments, murder, violence, supernatural creatures, ominous music, minor characters who are killed early, and major characters who survive till the end, and so on. Neal also argues that genres show difference and variation, meaning that every film, while following some genre conventions, will also leave out certain genre features and introduce new coding conventions which have not featured in that type of genre before. For example, a certain horror film may choose to have a convention, plot, music, and lighting, but an unusual choice of setting and characters to create an individual character to the film, keeping the audience engaged and moving trends forward, possibly even avoiding certain types of stereotypes. When myths and legends come to life on a movie screen, creating imaginary worlds and bringing magical creatures to the fore, this is fantasy. The fantasy genre is one of the most widely used within the industry, allowing filmmakers' imaginations to run amok. Stemming from an expansion in the science fiction genre, fantasy as we now view it involves not only fictional realms, as in a land far, far away, and magic traditional fairy godmother or Harry Potter, but supernatural elements such as werewolves, vampires, golems, and mummies, as well as Marvel and DC characters. Subgenres of the fantasy genre can be defined as high fantasy. For example, The Hobbit consists of vast amounts of CGI, high frame rates, prosthetics, and 3D artwork and sets, with human-like hero who undertakes a journey accompanied by a wizard and finds a magic ring to make himself invisible, then fights a dragon to save the world. Low fantasy, for example, Toy Story is fully animated CGI. The favourite toy, Woody the cowboy, is jealous of the new toy, the astronaut, both belonging to a small boy. All the toys speak and interact whilst humans cannot see, and during a house move, the toys get lost and have to work together to get back to where they belong. Magical, for example, Harry Potter, consists of CGI, animatronics, prosthetics, and miniatures. It centers around an orphan boy named Harry, who receives a magical letter of admittance into Hogwarts, a magical school. He finds out he is a wizard, as were his parents. Whilst he's at Hogwarts, he makes good friends and a few enemies, as he has special abilities. Together with his friends, battles evil wizards, finds the Philosopher's Stone, and destroys it, the outcome being that the most evil wizard cannot come to power. FAIRYTALE, for example, Hansel and Gretel, consists of CGI, 3D, and makeup. A brother and sister are kidnapped by an evil witch as children. They escape and grow up as witch hunters. They set out to help others hunt and kill witches for payment. When they stumble upon the witch who kidnapped them, they finally do away with her. Dark fantasy, for example, Pan's Labyrinth, contains a vast amount of CGI, modelling, and 3D. Set in post-Civil War, a young girl has to go and live in another country with her sick mother and evil stepsister. Her dreams become a reality. She finds herself with a faun as a guide and is set 3 tasks to prove that she is a princess in order to save her real father, who is the king. She completes the tasks and can see her father once again. Finally, Sword and Sorcery. For example, Last Witch Hunter contains a lot of CGI, 3D, and prosthetics. A knight is cursed with an eternal life by a witch queen before he kills her. Jump to present day, he teams up with a priest to continue his eradication of evil witches. They convince a young witch to make the hunter a memory potion. This is used to help find the evil witch. On finding and destroying the witch, the old queen is restored. A plague is then released by the queen. The hunter and his team kill the plague carrier, take the heart of the witch queen, preventing her coming back to life. All of which come under the umbrella of fantasy, whether it's knights slaying a dragon, vampires fighting werewolves, or Spider-Man protecting New York City. All storylines are based on good versus evil, black versus white, tradition versus change, or love and betrayal formulas. Escapism and suspension of belief come as standard. NBC's Grimm falls into the genre as a combination of dark fantasy and fairy tale, loosely based on the Grimm brothers' folklore stories and using dark fantasy creatures from an original idea of Todd Milliner, brought to life by a visual effects makeup team led by Oscar winner Barney Berman. The special effects and CGI are widely used to help portray the unbelievable, otherworldly and unusual aspects in design. You could also argue that Grimm also comes under the alternative historical fantasy. This subgenre is where you take an event from history or a period of time and twist the events, adding own fantastical elements. As mentioned in my case study, the Grimm brothers did not create the fairy tales, but they certainly were the first people to publish them and make them popular worldwide. They recorded the tales that were passed down through generations, often by women, passing the time during household chores. The original stories were never meant for children as they contained a vast degree of sex, violence, incest, drugs and alcohol abuse. They never contained any illustrations, and the collections entailed very dark elements that were later removed and altered when the stories became more popular amongst young children. Grimm Universe, the official YouTube channel of behind the scenes Grimm moments, released a video in late October 2020 on the morphed reality of the show. The show is different than previous programs in the fantasy genre as it follows police procedures aspects and not the usual horror aspects, and vesting creatures makes things more complicated for the detectives as they try to solve crimes. Because of its noble approach to the genre, it remains NBC's highest rated scripted Friday night TV shows. The series had emotion, depth, and a well-written storyline. The creators of Grimm gave audiences a completely new way of looking at fantasy, choosing to show how fantastic creatures have their own world within ours.